They're housing the migrants. Who knows how long they're going to be here for?
This has nothing to do with sanctuary cities. All of these cities are now starting to realize this is not sustainable.
We have an undocumented population. Now you can fix that by trying to build a wall, or you can fix that by trying to document people and create a path to citizenship.
Well, how about you know who the they are?
The migrant crisis simply will not stop, but surprisingly enough, Joe Rogan gave his 2 cents on the situation. All of that and more coming up on Inverted World. So last week was pretty crazy for students and parents in NYC, specifically Brooklyn, where thousands of migrants were moved from Floyd Bennett Field. There are tents that have been set up there for months now into James Madison High School, which is actually Chuck Schumer's alma mater. All of these high school students have been kicked out and forced to learn remotely. So once again, illegal migrants are being prioritized over American citizens. Now, just shortly after this happened, AOC was asked about her thoughts on the situation. Check it out.
Are you okay with the school being used as a shelter?
You know, I think it's, again, this is not, it's not in my district. I think it's very clear here that what's most important is that we identify a facility that's appropriate for these folks. I don't anticipate this being a long-term solution. It shouldn't be a long-term solution.
Right, it's not your district, it's not your problem, but the policies that you support are part of this problem.
We have an undocumented population. Now you can fix that by trying to build a wall, or you can fix that by trying to document people and create a path to citizenship. One of the reasons that our public systems experience wait is because people don't have a documented and reliable path to work and sustain themselves.
AOC was on TV the other day. She was calling them undocumented people, and the way to do it is to give them a path to citizenship. Well, how about you know who the they are? Yes! Because if you're a person from another country, say if you're in Europe and you want to come to America and become an American citizen, you know, you're an architect or whatever, this is like a long, lengthy process. And they only take a certain amount of people every year. And you have to prove that you have a skill. There's a reason why you should be here legally.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it illegally, they'll give you money. They'll give you a cell phone. There's people in Mexico. What they're doing is, this is pretty wild, because there's a radio station in San Diego that is a Mexican radio station. This guy was on the Mexican radio station, is explaining how we do it. He's like, he's gone back 4 times that month. So every time he crosses over, he gets $2,000.
He's gaming it.
So he's gaming. He made $8,000 in a month from the federal government.
So Joe Rogan really illustrates it perfectly here. There are people trying to game the system, and AOC thinks that just giving all these illegal immigrants citizenship is a quick fix to the problem. But that is not an actual solution in the long run. The migrants that actually deserve a pathway to citizenship, which I'm all for, they need to earn it. They need to be vetted. They need to learn English. They need to demonstrate their skills and show why they deserve to live in America legally. That cannot just be handed out to everyone like candy. But we're at a stage right now where migration is so out of control that before we shift our focus onto legal immigration solutions, we need to do something about the crisis at the border right now. What we need are deportations, okay? Closing the border, getting the military involved. You have more than 300,000 migrants, including families and children, crossing the border every month. And that number will only continue to grow unless we do something now. In fact, there are more migrants coming across the border than there are Americans being born.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah, you heard that right. More migrants coming across the border than Americans being born. Here's what Eric Adams said after he was criticized for kicking children out of the school to house illegals.
I'm sure you've heard by now, you were mentioned in last night's debate on the topic of immigration. Let's take a look at this.
This is putting harm on our schools, on our hospitals. Taxpayers are paying for it. You see these mayors are now upset about it. The only reason Eric Adams is now upset, why? He shouldn't be a sanctuary city then. That's why we have to defund sanctuary cities. Now Governor Abbott finally did to them what's been happening to Texas for so long. We've got to put an end to this.
All right, Mayor, what's your reaction?
Well, national leaders should have national knowledge of policies. This has nothing to do with sanctuary cities.
Here's what makes absolutely no sense. First, you're saying that sanctuary cities are not part of the problem when this whole mess was created because of these policies that New York City has mandated when it comes to migrants seeking shelter. The city has decided not to cooperate with ICE to detain illegals who commit crimes. You've decided to just release them instead of enforcing federal law. You don't want to cooperate with the federal government to deport illegals, but then you complain when the federal government isn't giving you the money to help take care of them.
Oh, okay.
You can't have your cake and eat it too. That's just total hypocrisy. But then again, what can you expect from Eric Adams?
Migrants and asylum seekers are paroled into the countries. They're here legally.
Well, they really shouldn't be legal because they're not really asylum seekers. They're coming into this country seeking a better life, seeking jobs. They're not escaping political persecution. If we don't fix the current problem at the border, then we're not going to be able to solve the legal immigration issues. Ideally, we should have a vetting process, and for the citizens that are in this country, we should be training them with the necessary skills to fulfill the roles and the jobs that we actually need. There are too many people flooding into this country, too many low-skill workers that can do the jobs that nobody wants to do. And we should be pushing employers to hire citizens instead of paying migrant workers for pennies on the dollar.
And so when you have a national leader talking about sanctuary cities, the reason we're having this is telling me she's not knowledgeable on the real topic. The problem is when you parole someone into a country, you should have a decompression strategy on a national level to spread it throughout the country and not target just certain cities. That's why you're seeing this real coalition of Chicago, Denver, Boston. All of these cities are now starting to realize that this is what Eric was saying, that this is not sustainable.
So what exactly is Governor Abbott doing? You say we need to spread illegals across the country, but that is exactly what's happening. These Democrat policies are embracing open borders, giving them free shelter, health care, education, and all the rest. Didn't you get what you wanted by having these migrants come into your city? Don't try to distort the picture here. Just because you screwed up this whole migrant crisis, don't start complaining. Texas dealt with this crisis for far too long, and Governor Abbott actually did the right thing by forcing these sanctuary cities to stand by their convictions. Ironically, at first, Texas was being told that they needed to deal with this situation by spreading the illegals across the country. Governor Abbott was accused of being racist and xenophobic for not handling the crisis in that way. But then as soon as he did what Democrats were asking for by putting them on buses to all these cities, now you have people like Eric Adams complaining, oh, there's not enough funding. This is not our responsibility.
What do you want from me? Huh?
So what I'm seeing here, this is how the Democrats play their open border agenda. They play this constant game of cat and mouse by shifting the blame on the other side, distracting the public while they let the border get invaded, and at the same time hog all the public systems and resources for migrants without any real solution to the problem.
Also causing some real strain on the systems here in New York. There was a lot of backlash just this week about a high school in Brooklyn. There was a tent shelter. Those families, because of the weather, were moved into that high school. How are we going to continue to handle this? Because those parents were very angry.
Okay, and we need to be really clear about that, because there were people called in bomb threats, people who made some nasty remarks. That's not New York. Just because a numerical fringe group, 9-10 people call in, we're 8.3 million New Yorkers. We've always used our school buildings during emergencies. During the fire in 2022, up in the Bronx, we moved those residents into school. When you have flooding, major storms, we move them into school buildings. When you have buildings collapse, we use school buildings. We're not going to say in the city that when we have an emergency that impacts migrants, we're not going to use our school buildings, because no matter what people say, if you look closely, these are still children. And adults should not ever put anything that's going to endanger children.
Yeah, there's a difference when you're talking about New York City residents who are trying to find a safe harbor from disasters that they have no control over, like a fire. You have mandated policies for these migrants to seek shelters, and there's an alternative solution. You just don't want to do it.
Not one child or family sleeps on the streets of the city of New York because of what my team has done. We did the right thing. And those parents who are stating that we can't inconvenience someone for one day because of other children, that's not acceptable, and I'm not going to put children in harm's way.
What if it gets to the stage where it's been a month now that the students have been learning remotely and can't get back into their school? Well, let's just give it another couple months. Hell, let's give it a year.
Leroy Press has done some excellent reporting on the migrant crisis in New York. Here's an interview that he did with a parent outside of James Madison High School.
The city kept on saying that they're going to plan on going remote for New York City schools. We all knew this bullshit was going to happen. We knew what was going to happen because they housed them in Floyd Bennett Field because the weather is bad. The New York City DOE saying that they're closing the school because of the wind and the rain. It's bullshit. They don't close because of rain. They're housing the migrants. Who knows how long they're going to be here for? They're not vaccinated. We don't know how long they're going to stay here for. Are they being scanned to go in? That our kids are going to be remote for how long? A day, 2 days, 3 weeks? It's not fair.
Yes, so New Yorkers, forget about your children. The children of illegal migrants are more important than American citizens and taxpayers. After all, the migrants are the biggest victims. They suffer from all the oppression. They're the only ones that need to be helped. Homeless Americans, they're not important either. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense if you're woke. It makes sense in woke language.
Why not? Come on in.
I just can't believe New Yorkers are still lining up to vote for all this nonsense. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, like, share, subscribe, and thanks for watching Inverted World.
We are led by very, very stupid people.